This is not getting in the bloody recording.
Make sure you subscribe to Maury Calliope on YouTube.com.
Okay, that is true. Okay, never mind. That's staying in. All right, kick us in, Whale. Let's get underway.
Okay. Hey, this is Bad Frag week 4 with air quotes because we did skip a week. It's Bad Frag number 4. Welcome to it. We've got a bunch of wonderful guests here today, including nkenny of Lambs, Drongo of Drongos, he makes various scripts, and Diwako, who you may know from DY Squad Radar. They're all here to help inform us about the wonderful world of mod making and scripting in ArmA 3, and the topics are in accordance with that. So to introduce them, the topics before the people, we're going to be covering using the Eden editor alone versus scripting, and what you can achieve by moving to scripting. Second, an Enfusion engine wishlist, and what we're going to want to see when ArmA 4 comes out. After that, mod IP, that's IP protections and stuff like swap, RHS, and intellectual property, really. And if we have time, we probably won't, we're going to try and cover a script mod or piece of Eden wizardry that we saw on a mission and loved.
Or just
so on that note, let's introduce the guests.
Well, since I already insulted him, let's kick it off. Drongos, do you want to introduce yourself and shill for your mods, which I've already shilled for plenty?
Yep. Well, I started with OFP and used to make missions for that, and I will claim that I am the first person to ever make a full map dynamic mission for the OFP ArmA series, and I would say really the cause of me getting into OFP and ArmA modding is probably vaccine damage as a child, which gave me the correct mix of retardation and this game and this scripting engine.
Demonetized.
I mean, I just went to EB Games one day, but you got a good backstory. God damn.
Yeah, so download my mods, send me money. Hard enough shilling.
Drongos is the one, I believe I've shilled for it in the podcast before, but one thing I shill for the hardest is Drongo's air operations, which turns planes in ArmA from entirely fucking useless scenery objects to actual threats that can kill you, and it's really fucking nice. Alrighty.
The gunship works too.
Oh, it's so bloody good. Alright, nkenny, again, another mod I have shilled for hard. I'm sorry, Diwako, but you got Whale here for you to do that. nkenny of Lambs, one of my favorite bloody mods. Introduce yourself, please.
Hi guys. I'm one of the co-authors of the Lambs Danger FSM mod, AI enhancement for ArmA 3. You might be familiar with. I came into ArmA, actually into Operation Flashpoint way back when, but I didn't start releasing stuff until ArmA 2, where I just did some mission releases, a really small light mission package. Wow, this is way back when, come to think of it. And well, since then I've playing ArmA 3 with a Norwegian community. That's about it. Go test Lambs ArmA Danger FSM if you haven't. It's great.
I'm just letting you know, nkenny, you're not talking on TeamSpeak, so your mouth ain't moving, but it's alright. That's something you can fix. And then we'll kick it over. Diwako, Whale, do you want to shill his intro? Since I've shilled them all the other two.
I think Diwako can speak for himself, but yes, he's the creator. Many know him from DY Squad Radar, which is definitely one of the cleanest mods I've seen implemented for ArmA 3 as of late.
Basically, it started with DayZ. That was the first contact with ArmA in a general sense. Then I stayed for the milsim, basically. And up to now, I'm still in the same unit. Started doing scripting, modding, and in ArmA 3, I started releasing mods and scripts and various other things. So, yeah, and here we are.
God, someone in chat's just said, real homies know Diwako for his anomaly mods.
Oh, no. Yeah, that was actually my first mod that I released.
Actually,
it
I
still haunts me till this day.
No, those are fucking amazing still, dude. I used them quite extensively recently in the forest operation, which was a big bloody like sort of a very story-based operation where we dropped a bunch of people into a sandbox and basically didn't tell them what was going on. They had to like figure out what was happening. To quickly summarize it, if you've played Contact, it was the Contact campaign, but they were a bunch of morons instead of I don't know, Alex Jones in the forest. So it was good fun to use those. But all right, Whale, do you want to intro us into the first topic and start us off?
Absolutely, happy to get things rolling here. So, topic 1. Using the Eden editor alone, like using triggers, modules, just slapping down AI, versus going into scripting, which I would call drumming up some lovely text files using commands directly to extend the experience a little bit. First, how far can a mission maker go with Eden alone before they have to go further and write some code beyond the modules down to scripting? What can you achieve just with Eden? I've seen some excellent things from Rimmy in terms of AI interactions mid-mission. I know Rimmy doesn't do scripting a lot and mostly sticks to the Eden editor.
Nope.
And there's also a lot of TMTM mission makers I know of that just stick to Eden exclusively.
I'm about to break you. Give me a second. I have recently done quite my fair share of scripting. I'll step in here and say that. But the main reason was mainly performance. Was we stepped over, started doing that. I was like, okay, how the hell can I improve performance on the missions but still keep a reasonable enemy count? And it kind of spiraled from there. And like recently, I wrote a script for it's called plain bombing runs. That's how I did the Iron Harvest mission where Gulye got hit with that bomb. That was all done through a faked bombing run because I could not get these fucking planes to drop their bombs properly without Drongo's air ops, right? But what I want to do was actually I probably should have just asked Drongo how to like ask for a fire mission. That would be much easier. But what I ended up doing was basically making it target a tree. And then it had to look at this tree and then drop its bomb, and that sort of faked the bombing run. And Warpigs is currently screaming in chat because I killed his team with a scripted bombing run. So it was, it's definitely something I've stepped up doing more. I can definitely touch a lot on this subject because of my video I made, which was the how to make an ArmA 3 operation not be a fustercluck, which was basically just a bunch of basic, Eden tips and ways to make missions that sort of you may or may not know when you're starting off, like past the basic, how do you place enemy units. And I think that the biggest thing with the Eden editor is there is so much that you can do without touching a single script, like without even writing anything in an init box for anyone. Before you even get to that stage, you can do so much with the editor, especially if you put on Eden Advanced, which is just lying to you about not using scripting. You're using scripting, you're just letting someone else do it. But there is so much you can do, but there is a certain point where what you're trying to set up to do is going to be so much more complex than just writing a basic script to start it off. For instance, one of the things I showed off in the video was a method for when Bluefall moves into this area, you'll have a squad mount up in a helicopter, then their waypoints will be synced so that when the squad mounts in the helicopter, the helicopter's waypoint will complete, the helicopter will take off, fly over, drop off the squad, fly back, land again, and then you can have another squad jump in with a new synced waypoint and repeat, and like you can have this helicopter ferry units in. That's all something you could do in Eden, or you could just write a script, which is going to be like 10 lines that will just spawn the helicopter, put the units in, and then it flies over with a waypoint. And it takes about.
And that script's going to be reusable.
It's going to be reusable.
It's
going to save you every bloody frame that those units would otherwise cost. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of stuff where, as long as you can sort of move away from being, in the happy hand-holdy visual editor to I need to look at some lines of text for a bit, you can do so much more in ArmA. And I think definitely someone I want to kick it over straight away to is Drongo's, because your mods rather remind me a lot of just very much like this. It's gonna sound weird to say, but it's yours feel like packaged scripts rather than like this is my fancy mod with a full blown interface, and that's fine because they fucking work. But it's quite clear that you're like, all right, here is a script, and this is what the script does, and it fucking works like a charm, Sort of, have you got anything on that? Okay.
Yep, that's it exactly. My mods are mostly packaged scripts, and there's a few reasons to do that. But basically, if you write a bunch of scripts and they're sitting there in the mission folder, if let's say you have someone that's hasn't even ever used has hardly used the editor before, but you want to make a portable mission, then it's much harder for them to like get into. Maybe even find where their missions save and then start copy pasting and changing things. Whereas with the module approach, you just plop it down in the editor, and I guess all the scripts are there doing their thing in the background, and the way that people interact with them are through the options on the module. But there are a bunch of scripts. When I develop it, I sit in the editor and write scripts and then package it up with a config CPP and deliver it that way.
I mean, they work a charm. It's bloody brilliant to use, and I will say modules are very much that sort of modules are the stepping ground between you're a basic person who's just placed a bunch of units in the editor and you're doing scripting, and it's that right middle ground where you start to kind of cross over and learn. Modules I think are brilliant, and there is a lot you can do with them. There are a few times like every time I bug you in your bloody Discord, or I'm like, hey, how do I do this? It's not in the module. Help. And there's definitely a few things like that. For instance, I actually got the help of the Alive guys once to write a script that would check every unit in the map, and if it was an Alive unit, as in handled by Alive, it would remove Drongo's access, because Drongos kept stealing the Alive airplanes and sending them off on strange bombing runs they weren't meant to be doing. And so it's like, it's that sort of moment. That's where you sort of, I think, I'm trying to think, it's like, it's a case of necessity for many people. For me, I started scripting back in ArmA 2, making zombie missions with my cousin, of all fucking things. And it was stuff like, I remember the first script I ever learned was, how do I put machine gun on roof? Because back in my day, we didn't have this fancy 3D editor where you could drag up and down. I couldn't figure out how to get machine gun to stay on roof and not just clip into roof and explode.
Change the height of this pencil 50 times until it sits on the table.
Now we have glorious things like attach object, which means we can have tractors with M2s on their roof.
Well, no, Attach 2 was quite popular in ArmA. I remember one of the top videos in ArmA 2, if you were looking on YouTube, was the Battle Bus video, which everyone saw. Battle Bus through Takistan. Remember that? It was like the
I remember that.
Yeah.
It's a good bloody video, that.
But to be fair, machine guns still explode when you put them on the roofs, even in Eden these days.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I guess it depends on the building.
I quite recently, I don't know if you seen the ping on the server, but I just did an Iron Harvest operation. Iron Harvest is this it's basically like World War I with mechs. Very, very fascinating setting. The Polish love it. And basically, what I did was I just strapped various World War II weapons to drones and such, so that we had these drones which were machine gun mechs, but of course they were just someone with a Vickers strapped to the top of a UGV driving around, which worked surprisingly well. It was really good fun to see.
So that was
trucks were worse.
Kit bashed.
Yeah, that's the definite. Yeah, it was kit bashed, and in that sort of moment, with zero modding, sort of. Okay, I wouldn't say zero. I think an absolute minimal amount. The most I've ever modded was Alive. With my experience, basically being near zero, I was still able to make new usable vehicles with a single line of code in the editor, which is just sort of goes to show how powerful you can what's called the sort of power rather you can wield if you dare to actually look at text for a few seconds and learn.
If you're using
code.
Eden alone, you're kind of looking at maybe 1/10 of all the ArmA commands that are out there. You're ultimately kind of doing scripting either way, but you're only accessing a tiny little slice of what is possible if you decide you don't want to write any text.
There's something to note. I'll have to remember this.
And you're basically also, if I may cut in, basically also on the mercy of the modules. So if you want to do something fancy and the modules don't cover that, well, you're out of luck.
Yeah. There's something I'm doing right now for the Stranger op. I'm trying to do. So this is something I've been killing myself. I'm getting.
Ooh, Rimmy's doing an Ace Combat op.
It's gonna be dumb. But I'm currently figuring out my own scripts to basically have what's called not webcams, like faces appear on the top right of your screen when people are talking. So
oh boy,
subtitled cutscenes.
Yeah, it is.
Oh my god, okay, that's so relevant because Diwako made an Ace Combat op that I played at Face Punch ArmA just a few weeks ago, and today I wanted to talk about an Ace Combat op that I played years ago, where somebody made a scripted cutscene with talking heads, and they had a jet. This apparently took them 3 days of their real life to figure this out. Getting a jet to fly in and freeze in midair while a camera points at it for the intro of the mission, and then there's a voiceover in the background as it does like an Ace Combat cinematic cutscene panning over land and stuff. It took him 3 days, and in the end, it was kind of ruined because he forgot to mute everybody's task force. So it was TMTM, and they're just screaming like, "Oh my god, this cutscene's so cool!" all over it. Nobody could hear anything. And the end of the op, the conclusion to Vaughn's epic Ace Combat op in 2016 was everybody got spawned into a jet at the very end of the op to have a air-to-air battle, and the server went down to about 1.5 FPS, and it was hell. It was so great. I loved it.
Yes.
So I just sent a small picture in the Discord about the attached to stuff that you can do. Basically, this was done in scripting by someone from my unit.
Yes,
and
I've
they
seen
could just
that before.
spawn it. And
What's
it was
between its legs,
glorious.
Diwako? What's
Yeah,
between the legs?
It's a
That's-
train. Don't worry about it.
It's actually a BMP. I think
It's a
announced
red
there or something,
train.
Is
that'll
bus?
appear in the video. God damn.
Shout out to Terry, by the way, who made that.
But yeah, there was something I was going to say. Actually, I'll cover over anything. If you guys have got anything else to say on that idea of sort of Eden versus scripting, because there is something I want to bring up. I've just remembered. Whale actually bonked my memory on. But before I lead us down that
Or
topic,
what about Severe? What about Drongo?
yeah, indeed.
What about nkenny? You
the
guys
thing
have
is,
any other
I
thoughts?
wonder, yeah, what does AIFI do? Because they're mostly TVT, which generally, in my experience, needs less in the way of scripts.
TVT missions typically require less scripting than a PvE mission for obvious reasons, because the opposing side is always going to be player-based. So my experiences of creating scripts for TVTs is negligible. In fact, I don't think I've ever written a single line of code while mission making for AFI, which says something because, well, actually, that's the reason for that is because I've never made a mission for AFI. So,
Yes.
but you get the point, though, like that when you're creating circumstances where both of the factions are player based, that minimizes the need for scripts, which is also why sometimes like TVT missions tend to be less performance intensive than co-ops.
That's actually something I will definitely touch on there, because there's a weird thing I have with ArmA that I think that most scripters, most coders definitely shouldn't do, because it's very bad practice, but I rely on the human element, right? Where it's that kind of thing where I can get a script working in a certain way. It's like, okay, right, so they just have to put their weapon away first before this, I don't know, like, equipment script will work. And it's just something where...
The human element is a good way to put that, yeah.
The human element is where it's
pull
like...
these levers and it'll work.
If I was a good scripter, I would actually figure out a way that, was idiot-proof and, it would make sure that no matter what the script worked. But I have the human element on my side and limited time. So I'm just like, all right, everyone just before you use the script, don't be in a vehicle or you'll explode. Like that sort of thing.
No, that's true. That's true. All these missions are mostly you're making only going to be run once, so you don't really need to go into a prepackaged, super neat piece of code that you're going to reuse if it's only going to be run once. If you can cobble it together in the editor, sure, as long as it works.
I can hear you. Yeah, all right. So just carry on with the stream. We'll just get a big Departo Munitorum picture. Hang on. Sorry, Drongos was saying something very fascinating, and then Australia just decided that today is the day and my internet died. So that's fun.
Yeah, mate, I commented to him before. I didn't think my anecdote was that bad, but...
the bloody NBN's like they can't hear it.
So, basically, like, are we live now?
Yeah, we're good. We're back. Here we go.
Okay, yeah. So it's really horses for courses. Like, and one of the reasons why I make the types of mods that I do is I used to be just single player or just playing with one other person, and like I only ever play. Like, I never play on big crowded servers or anything. Just me and one or two mates all the time.
And that's still how you play it?
Yeah, that's how I play it now. So the reason for stuff like my command interface or DAO is like we don't have a dedicated pilot or anything like that because there's only 2 or 3 of us at any time. So for that kind of thing, like as Severe was saying, like for a PvP, you just need the guys there, and a very simple concept can turn into a very complex and enjoyable.
Oh no!
Oh jeez, it's alright. It's fine. I couldn't move the chair normally. Sorry. So go on, Drongos.
So yeah, basically horses for courses, and sometimes you only need the Eden editor, and you don't need to learn all fancy pants scripting. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, depends on your needs, I guess. That's the big sum of this topic: is that Eden versus scripting. What do you want to do? How much do you need to do?
Many of the things that have been said about scripting has been sort of covered here, but my view as somebody who makes basically a weekly mission for platoon-sized elements is, well, there's sort of 3 levels to this. You can do a lot of things in Eden, but to answer your question, Eden versus scripting or Eden versus coding, I think the answer is not much, but that doesn't mean you should be discouraged in any way. learning the Eden editor and pushing out some small missions when you're still in an early learning stage, or as has been said already, if Eden covers all your needs, if you have the modules for it via missions or whatnot, that's fine. But once you start making missions more frequently, perhaps, or for larger groups, the benefits of scripts quickly become apparent, because you can automate very many sort of processes, and you can replicate them more easily. So there's a sort of a growth of skill here. First, starting with the Eden editor, learn the waypoints, guys. If you're out there, learn what the different waypoints do. They are so extremely powerful.
It took me so long to learn what God did.
And it's one of those basic. It's been around since Operations Flashpoint. It does a lot of cool things. It has gone through actually some changes in how the AI behaves to that. Don't need to cover that right now, but there's the waypoints are really powerful. Use guard, sentry waypoints. Dismissed is sometimes usable for some missions, and so on and so forth.
I'll admit, I use dismissed far too much. Before I did better operations, before we used lambs or anything, I used dismissed in almost every town where there was AI, because it just did this great effect of, just AI being spread out and relaxing in a town without walking in squad formation. It was so well done.
That's actually what it's supposed to be doing, right? There's only one problem. They leave the town pretty quickly.
They do. That's the problem. You got to get there quick enough, because they will just start to leave the area.
I'm going home now.
I'm dismissed. Oh man.
But once you've gotten your sort of feet wet with Eden, it's time to start adding small scripts. Do small scripts to do small things. Can't stress it enough. Don't start making that Magnus Opus 40-player mission intended for a 24-hour session. Start small. Make a tiny mission. Go kill something here and there. Go back again. Very simple concepts. Be more aware of the location really, and the threats, and also how to communicate what the mission is to your would-be audience, and start with that. So once you got that under wraps, go with basic scripts, simple scripts. They don't need to be written by you. They just need to be, just need to understand the sort of functions of them. And pretty soon you can connect this to an entire framework of scripting. So when I make a mission for platoon-sized element, if the objective is to seize a town, I can do that with 4 lines of code. Like one function to put a garrison there, one function to put civilians there, one function to put down parked cars or barricades or whatnot, and one more line just to put in whatever you want for ambient traffic and stuff like that around there. And that's an enormous time saver.
No.
But then you get to the fiddly bits, like this room. Doing that by scripting, now you're talking really advanced stuff. So I mean, don't discount the time you spend in the Eden editor. Some of my most interesting missions have actually been collaborations where I've had people work together with me to place stuff in rooms or make the mission area more interesting. We had a joint up with the English group. What's the name? Vanguard Company. This summer, where we essentially had 4 guys working on the same op, fulfilling different parts. Some of us writing briefings, some of us doing the technical implementation. That was my job, and the 2 others building the HQ and also building the enemy position. And that's, I mean, ArmA is like that. So it's okay to seek out help or do stuff in a sort of team as well.
One thing I will say for
Team did that too. They go ahead, Rim.
Oh yeah, I was just anyone learning, the first thing you need to do, and this is something that kills me for ArmA, this is the only thing I hate about scripting in ArmA, is multiplayer scripting and multiplayer coding. Like, so one thing you may not know when you're first fresh-eyed little fucking coder is you come on in and you do a code and it's great and it works in your single player, and then you load it up in multiplayer and you discover that it doesn't work at all because it's client side or it's whatever, like Digby's recent.
What is locality?
Oh, I fucking hate locality. I fucking hate it. It's just the worst thing to handle. No, what's it called? Recently, Digby had this Arbeits operation, and it all worked relatively well. Everything was, like beyond what we could even hope for. It was, we were actually fighting AI on VR in tunnels, and it functioned. It was insane. And I think I had a chat about that in the Lambs Discord, actually. But anyway, we're playing around. It's all great. And the end of the operation, what was going to happen is when all the enemies were eliminated, it played a song, and then the mission ended, right? It was Digby's Arbeits wrap. Thing is, for some reason, I don't know how he screwed this up, but I was the only one in the entire server who could hear the music. So I was there jamming out, and everyone else was just looking at me and being like, wait, is the op over? What's happening? It's just everyone's kind of stood around waiting, and it was just an incredibly sad, uncomfortable end to what should have been an epic climax. And it was just, I was just there.
I still don't know how the hell that could have happened.
I don't know, because
it's a dedicated server. You weren't hosting it, so
I wasn't hosting. Yeah, so I don't know
client.
why. I was just the one client that got the music for some reason. It was really weird, but
maybe it was intended to just play for you.
No,
to make you look funny.
No, Digby was quite unhappy that everyone didn't hear it. He got that fixed though. That's the one they always say is, I mean, I do this for Eden anyway, but extensive testing before every op and just get at least one other person in. That server only tick on triggers is my biggest check every time I check a mission, because if you don't check that, you're about to spawn, a group per player rather than just one enemy group sort of thing. And that's the real danger.
This is my enemy group. Hey, this one's mine.
Yeah, it's
300 enemy groups later.
Oh, we had an op crash with that recently. I'm just like, as the moment we stepped into a trigger, I knew where the trigger was. Op started crashing. I'm like, you didn't fucking tick server only, did you? So I knew it just immediately what was crashing the server. Oh god. And it was like they were spawning something like 60 groups of German infantry that was just suddenly appearing on the hill behind us. What was it?
What did people do for locality before BIS Funk MP was a thing, before remote exec ever came along? How did people do anything between machines?
I
haven't the slightest clue.
I used to have you'd have a server loop, like, because I think game logics are always local to the server, so you would name a game logic server or whatever, and then something like you check if that was local, and if it was, you'd run a script in a loop using goto probably in SQS, and then you would use public variable, and then the clients would have a loop running, and they would pick it up, except if it was an array, because you couldn't public variable arrays. I think there was.
But then you'd sacrifice the goats. The goats. The blood sacrifice.
Travel to Czechoslovakia, go into the forest, find the sacred stone.
Yeah, it sounds like you have every machine running in place as fast as it can. It's like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. And then the baton gets passed, and then finally starts running the code.
Good.
Yep. And if it crashed, there was no JIP, so.
Oh God, yeah, that's the one thing I hate as well as JIP, because you've got to be careful. That, as Tanaka recently discovered in CC07,
join in progress as well.
Join in progress breaks shit real well. It's actually Severe. You did say, of course, TVTs don't need a lot of scripting, but recently we played a TVT which had quite a bit of scripting. It had some teleports and some changing respawn positions and such. And when those broke, the salt was fucking endless. Because we had people respawning where enemies were attacking, and that wasn't fun for anyone.
I feel like a few people like that.
I feel like that comes down to mission design.
Yes, and smacking Tanaka and telling him to make better ops, which is good. He's not on the podcast this week, so I can make fun of him. Anyway. But
for me, it's really mission design when it comes to join in progress and multiplayer. And also script, what's it called? Basically, a script has to handle this, and if it doesn't, then it's a shit script, basically.
Well, that's where I think the savior is. What is it? Init player local, I think, is always it runs on join in progress, which is a fucking beauty. I think it's init player local. And that's basically the way to handle those sort of scripts. That's what I did for the Drongo's op, where I had to basically. I was angry at you, Drongos. Damn it, you using the client side. Actually, I can say that the human element thing was part of the thing there. I was annoyed because I had to figure out a way to disallow all these aeroplanes from Drongos and allow certain people to use Drongos air operations, but not other people's, because I only wanted the FAC using it basically. And I know you have. I think you have the Rankin something system built into your mod. I can't remember what it's the one where you use like your Steam ID.
Yeah, that's by Yon V.
Yeah, I fucking hate that. It's just because I run a unit with fucking like something, what are we, like 300, 400 people at this point? So, yeah. I was like, how can I not use that? And then I kind of realized, I was like, you know what, fuck it. I couldn't get the script going. I went, human element. I'm just going to put like a hidden poll in the mission, and I'll just tell the fact to run over and click on that poll, and that'll do all the script. It's just like, that's how I'm going to do it. There's just no one else go click on the poll, all right?
Solution.
Yeah, everyone stay away from the fucking
solution.
fact poll, all right? Only the fact can touch the fact poll. So that's sort
It's
of
just like a pole sticking out of the ground that you go to
I mean,
use.
no
just gives you
jokes
a
of
little
it.
action.
I did actually have that for another operation. There was this is something that kind of annoys me. I'm not a fan of timers in missions often, because timers are something that I find are very, very miss more than hit. Because if you put a timer in operation, you might think, okay, you know, they've got 30 minutes to get into the town and stop the enemy commander before he escapes. And that might be good, but then, you know, you load in and everyone starts crashing, and then, you know, you're trying to drive down the road, but then the wheels on your vehicle fly off, and then, you know, you've lost 5 minutes while you Zeus in new vehicles, and then you get
Wheels
there.
on your vehicle fly off. Does that happen often?
Someone
Arma.
happened to
Anything's
a guy the
possible.
other day, yeah. Fucking me and Whale can talk about the flying tanks that were desynced. That was fun. But yeah, I find timers are something that I don't like using in ops, but I was like, all right, for this operation, I need a timer. And what I had was, I was like, okay, my solution to making sure that everyone is, like, you know, the op hasn't broken before the timer starts is I just put a fucking, like, a fuel station sign, like, you know, 500 meters away from base. I jogged over to it, and when Bluefall went next to the sign, it just started all the timers. So I was just like, all right, excuse you guys, I gotta go stand next to... Yes, I know. It's like, I gotta go stand next to my start sign. And I jogged over, did that, mission started, it worked. And it all went well from there.
Scripting is a path to many powers. One might
Many
consider
powers, and
unnatural.
you'll see how jank you can make them. But yeah, everything's improving from there. So one thing I was going to say...
Okay. If anyone has any final thoughts, yeah, I was going to segue
this
into
is
the
the
next
thing,
topic.
because not the next topic just yet. Has anyone used Eden 2.0, the mod that came out a little while back? Basically the one that adds visual scripting into Eden. Wow.
There's Eden Enhanced, but I've never used it.
No one has...
Nope.
Wow, really? Okay, well, I guess
Never had a need for that, to be honest.
You're talking to a room of people that do code for everything.
Yeah,
I've never used a
okay. I
module
realize
in
I'm talking to a
years
bunch
and
of fucking scientists. Have you heard of a test tube? But it's like, I was just saying something that if you're getting new into ArmA and you want a sort of a way to screw around and learn some scripting, there is a mod, and I'm gonna have to, I'll find the actual name for the video, but I believe it was called something like Eden 2.0 or Eden Visual Scripting, and it added a separate tab into the Eden editor, much like Eden Enhanced. I mean, it adds a bunch of other features, but one of the main things it adds was visual scripting. So you basically got, you know, like you have, you know, man, one object, and then you could connect that to vehicle object with a script that, you know, you make, oh, I'm going to make him get in this vehicle.
Wait, they put Scratch on ArmA?
Basically, yeah. It's honestly,
Wow.
honestly quite impressive. As a neat way to learn scripting and learn how to get, like, how everything works, because, you know, there was obviously like attach to was a thing you could use there, and you're like, oh, okay, I see, and then, you know, it would give you the code, and so then you could go and do the code yourself once you learned doing that. It was just a really kind of neat thing. Yeah, okay, Spanish has just confirmed it is indeed called Eden 2.0. I probably wouldn't use it. I already prefer my ways. I'm a boomer. I know how to do my things. I've got my scripts that work, and once they work, I never fucking touch them ever again because I know they work. And
Only touching a surface, to be honest.
Yeah, but it's just definitely something. If people are learning scripting or want to learn how to sort of up their mission game a little bit, that's certainly one place to start. Being able to visualize everything. You're like, oh, I see. You know, this script connects that to that. You know, this does this. You know, oh, this is a respawn script, you know, that works there, that sort of stuff. You know, it's a nice way to sort of lay it out visually, which is, I think, one of the main reasons that you'd see so many more mission makers in ArmA 3 is the Eden editor. Just being in 3D, being able to see your mission is such an insane difference compared to ArmA 2's, oh, look, it's some fucking squares on a map. And then you load in and everything doesn't fit together properly, you know, sort of, that sort of insanity. But yeah, well, I think high time. You want to kick us on?
Can I make one last comment?
Oh yeah, sure.
Anyone
go ahead.
Looking to get into scripting is use debug chat.
Yes.
Write your own little script to place down markers and use debug markers. And one of the best ways to start is by looking at other people's scripts and just changing 1 or 2 things and seeing what happens.
Viciously stealing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Stealing is. Hey, we're going to talk about that later today, but
actually, yeah, we are going to talk about that.
Not really stealing.
not stealing.
That's
just
how you learn, to
looking
be
at if it's
honest.
open source, if it's already on GitHub, you can look at the code. You can tweak with it a
GitHub,
little bit. That's
yeah,
how I first
no,
discovered
that's funny-
scripting. Was
funny way
dynamic
to say
AI
the
creator. I
Bohemia
tweaked it a little
forums.
bit.
So, I mean, yeah. At the end of the day, I think scripting is one of those things that, much like learning languages, you just steal from other people until eventually it starts to make sense in your head, and then you can sort of go from there. So, well, yeah.
We here at Bad Frag highly recommend you check the license first, and then feel free to.
Well,
make
we'll
changes
talk
if
about
it's
that
allowed.
in part 3, which is why I want to kick us on before we talk about this forever. So, to our
Part 2.
little Enfusion.
So we talked about just a moment ago how ArmA 3 recently, not so recently, had the additions of remote execute and other commands that add better locality functionality into ArmA 3. What would some more wonderful commands or engine supports be for ArmA 4? For the Enfusion engine, what are we looking for? I was thinking things like animation blending could make enhanced movement a little less jank, or stuff like proper integration of signal propagation, so you could have something like Acre 2 be part, or Task Force, be part of ArmA 4, and maybe some improvements to the script scheduler so people can schedule code to be executed later and not have to worry about performance hits, stuff like that. What do we say, Drongo, do you have any thoughts on this?
For specific commands, not much that I can think of off the top of my head. Not commands, but more generally, some things that I would want in Enfusion engine.
Oh, absolutely. It doesn't have to be commands. To be clear, we're talking about any engine improvements you would like to see for ArmA 4.
Okay. The very first thing I'll mention is effective melee at the engine level. Because scripted alternatives exist, but they don't get the kind of feedback that you want. And like, if you look at something like the 40k mod, like melee is such a huge part of 40k, and I guess it's one thing generally that ArmA doesn't do is combat at very, very close range. Like at medium or long range, it's fantastic, and even medium to short range. But at very, very close range, like being able to walk into a house and just hit someone with your gun or bayonet them or whatever. And it would also open up a lot of other stuff for the like survival mods or a whole lot of modding options. And again, done at the engine level with scripting support, dedicated key, things like that, proper feedback for the player. And kind of also related to this, but more generally, is proper AI hit reactions. One thing I really, really hate in ArmA is when if you don't have any mods loaded, you shoot an AI and they do this weird little flinch, high-speed flinch, and then they'll headshot you.
Yeah.
You're dumping into them and they just shoot back effortlessly. Yeah.
So melee and proper injury reaction, and completely accessible with scripts and done at the engine level, would be my first thing. Can I go on for about 30 minutes?
The gunplay needs improvement. The netcode needs improvement. We need support from Daisy stuff like melee.
I can definitely step in there with a few things. I'll say, like, yeah, melee is one of those things that's like, I would not say it's at the top of my list, because it's one of those things where I don't think it would ever fit that well in ArmA. I completely understand why it doesn't work, but obviously with Daisy being one of the main users of the Enfusion, and the reason that Enfusion was sort of the reason why ArmA got so popular, obviously I think they may step that way. I definitely think there'll at least be some improvements. I'm excited for the vehicle improvements coming with Daisy, because Daisy, to me these days, Daisy standalone is just the test bed for what ArmA will be soon. So
it actually is, to be honest.
I mean,
Daisy is really the middle point on engine-wise between the RV engine, which is ArmA, and Enfusion. So
I'm super excited.
It is the test bed.
But
it's also
definitely...
it's also bringing in a totally new scripting, or actually coding language.
Yes,
which is very different from SQF.
That's
so...
the sort of the two things I was touching on there was so one of obviously like Melee is a case of right now where it's very jank. There's Aftermath has it, I think with like an okay-ish system. There's an animation system I know which was old in like the Bohemia forums. I think I used that a while ago, which is very bad. It works, but it's not very good sort of thing. It's one of those just really jank mods. And I think the best melee in ArmA right now is IFA, which isn't technically melee. Basically, it makes you stab with your bayonet, and then it fires a very slow bullet along your bayonet, which you can push into someone using your gun. It's an interesting system. But it's definitely, there's so many different things you can sort of want there. I think for me, when it comes to Enfusion, there's two things that stand out. One is just netcode. One of the reasons we have to turn so many people away from the Kaden XX is we're at the point where we physically cannot fit more people into our operations. Like, if it was up to me and Digby, we would be having battalion-sized operations. We would have, actual genuine companies being led underneath us, and we would sit back in our palace fucking 20 kilometers away from the front sipping tea while we watched as, hundreds of players dance to our fucking amusement on the map. Sadly, ArmA's netcode doesn't really like that idea, and that is where it comes to sort of... that's where, like, more than anything, that is what I want. To the point where I'm considering contacting the military and be like, hey, can I have Titan IM, please? So one day. But
Give me Titan IM, and I'll be your recruiting tool.
I will sell more Titan IM copies if you give me a copy of Titan IM for my fucking army.
Just pull a fucking US Army esports move. Just be like, hey, give me Titan IM.
Oh yeah, that's it's the deal. Next time the US Army Esports wants to play with us, the deal is they're only allowed to play with us if they give us Titan IM. But no, one thing I was saying for nkenny, what he mentioned was stepping away from the hard-coded side of ArmA. So one of the sort of fascinating things I've seen the devs do was they showed off a fair bit of like what ArmA is actually capable of, but sort of you'd never think of. Like for instance, one thing was Super Millerland, the Mario in ArmA. If you guys know that.
Yep.
Then there was the it was like DDR but in ArmA. It was dancing. It was like the rhythm game they built in ArmA, and like that was in that as well. But I just sort of a step away from hard coded things. For instance, I don't know if like people in the chat know, but the radars in ArmA. So the one where the controller you get a track on a fucking helicopter or whatever, and then you can sort of lock on and launch that. That radar stuff is actually hard coded as part of I think the Jets DLC. I think is when that came around. And that's because that's hard coded. For instance, there is a electronic warfare mod, and because it's hard coded, he can only turn it on or off. He can't make the sort of changes that he needs to make to it. And I know the devs want to step away from that sort of side of being, mod devs can't actually edit this sort of shit, or they have to, make their own kind of workarounds to try and touch this stuff. They want to move to more free and open system, and that is what I'm excited for, because I'm aware that the 400 player netcode may never come, but if we can't have that, we can at least have a fully customizable ArmA with with systems that aren't sort of locked behind this stuff. So I'll kick it over. Whale, do you want to? Go on.
Well, just
having read a little bit about the Enfusion engine. It's supposed to be more accessible to modders and things like that, and to developers. So that's a positive. I'm hoping that there'll be more things added to it that encompass warfighting in general. So, I already mentioned previously before we started recording this podcast that I'd really like to see an integrated e-war layer that's simple enough that you could create missions around that, or create interesting scenarios with that. Currently, ArmA doesn't do that, obviously, because there's no integrated radio system. Everything's based on mods. And the mods that exist for that play around sort of with the e-war aspect are kind of primitive.
And
that's just because of engine limitations.
Allegedly as well, and I've read this in one article, and God, I hope it's true, they say that it should be able, ArmA 4 should be able to simply accept ports of mods from ArmA 3. You should be able to just port it across and it should work with minimal hassle. It's something I want to believe is true. It was from... it was
not true.
Nope, well then never mind. So this article has lied to me.
The pod will be dropped, so any kind of mod in script will not work in ArmA 4. Well, it's not ArmA 4, let's say unannounced project 4, okay?
Oh, yes.
I think 99% it's going to be the way. There's a 1% chance that poor dead man has to slave away over a hot stove for 2 years, and maybe he cranks out a transpiler from something like direct from SQF to the new language. But high hopes.
Doubt it'll come on. But yeah, well, like I was saying, well, you want to kick along? You got anything on anything you want from Enfusion?
Well, to touch on what you just mentioned about the higher player counts, I think that's going to be dependent on whether they can find a way to split up their core simulation loop, which they've never been able to do all the way since Operation Flashpoint, to make it multi-threaded to allow for better multi-core support for the game in general.
If Dwarf Fortress can do it,
really, I feel like ArmA 3 is dependent on that right now. That's the limiting factor, both for single player and multiplayer. What's holding people back is the fact that this game is so big, is not instanced whatsoever, and that the simulation loop for everything, except some AI calculations, is all running on one single thread for the most part, which is usually just going to be one processor.
There are multiple threads, actually. The issue is the main thread is one single one. There are a few more. For example, right now in ArmA 3, the dynamic simulation is running on its own thread. So that one is
but that's just turning the simulation on and off for units and tracking whether they should be turned on. I mean, that's not much. Like these threads, they've split off for some AI calculations for tracking dynamic simulation. It's still not taking a lot of the meat out of the main thread that's slowing everything down. And now that they're rewriting most of it for Enfusion, I feel like that's finally capable. And maybe we could see some higher player counts. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, we may stay on that. One feature I really want in Enfusion is an actual working scheduler for scripts. In ArmA, there is a scheduler. Basically, whenever you type in spawn to spawn a function, it goes into that scheduler, and the scheduler does its job. But if you add a few more scripts or a few more AI to that, it kind of starts breaking down and slows down everything around it, and it's annoying.
If I could interrupt real quick. Just for the layman, what the task scheduler he's referring to is when you spawn a script in ArmA 3 in the schedule environment, that means it can wait. For instance, you have a really big script that runs a lot of stuff one after the other, and you don't want the entire game to freeze on a single frame trying to calculate it before it continues. It will, I don't know the exact time, but it will run the code for a very short amount of time and then put it on the top of the schedule, bottom of the schedule list, run some other stuff, and then come back to it later. That's what he was referring to.
Yep.
It's basically the anti.
Right now, it's particularly inefficient, and it's not a great implementation. People highly recommend, especially ACE team recommends not using it whatsoever, because when the server is heavily loaded, the scheduler starts slowing down to the point where your script that you wanted to run 2 seconds from now, just by sleeping it or something in a spawn task, it will run instead 2 minutes from now, and that could fuck with a lot of stuff.
I mean, I think one of the things that sort of annoys me most about ArmA, and it's obviously something that's severe and sort of TVT people won't see, is when your server slows down, the first thing that leaves the room is the AI's brain, and that can.
I have seen that.
Oh, you have seen it? Yeah, well. It's definitely, I think that more than anything contributes to people's idea of, haha, ArmA AI is so fucking stupid. I'm like, well, yeah, your server's running on like 5 frames. What do you expect? You're like, it doesn't have the brain power to calculate firing back at you. That's why the AI is dumb, because you've put 3,000 objects and 500 AI in your server, not because ARMA's AI is dumb. That's rough.
I mean, let's be real. We could probably argue until the cows come home about whether the AI is dumb or not. And you know what my opinion is.
I'm still fucking mad at that fucking video on the ArmA 3 subreddit where it's like, haha, look how dumb the ArmA AI is because someone teleported a fucking truck in the front of a convoy of an entire group of vehicles.
You're still mad? It was just the intro to an Operator Drewski video.
I'm still fucking mad at Drewski for that video. That is such a fucking dumb video. Like, oh my god. The average player would be retarded enough to just slam straight into that truck if it suddenly teleported and exploded in front of them. Like, no shit.
Have you put the footage from that in the Bad Frag podcast yet? You can put it in and you can draw a bunch of big red arrows being like, no, this is wrong.
I probably will. To quickly explain, just to sum up for anyone that hasn't seen what I'm talking about, it's a line of UGVs driving towards a bridge in Agia Marina in Stratus. And then the fucking Zeus teleports a truck on the bridge, blocking their path, like directly in front of them. as they're driving up to the bridge, and then they have trouble getting around the truck. And that's it.
I can
And
actually explain why they have trouble if you want.
I mean, please go ahead, because I'll fucking snap my own neck if I talk about it anymore. I'm so mad.
Basically, ArmA is really not good when it comes to navigating over objects. Many objects, such as houses, have like an internal nav mesh. So basically, it's like a 3D lane where they can walk on or drive on. And if there's something on this mesh or on this lane, and there's no other lane connected to it, they can't just do anything. That's why you see so many AI walk through walls or walk through objects, because they are walking on this lane and there's something in the way. And a car or a UGV can't just, phase through the thing. So it tries to reverse, try another route, and they're like, oh, there's no other route. The nav mesh goes through the thing. Well, shit. And then you have what you see.
I mean, it's definitely something you see when you play a lot more ArmA. Oh, go on.
If an AI is blocking a doorway, if I'm blocking a doorway and the AI is trying to enter the house, he might just clip through a wall on the other side to get to me out of pure frustration.
Yes, actually.
That's how it works.
Open that doorway, let him in.
Well, it actually happened last night, if you remember, at the Coalition game. There was an AI that phased through a wall to mount a 50 cal.
Did he get anybody?
Yes, he did. He was literally standing outside the building. Players started coming up to him. He goes, "Oh fuck, time to do some Harry Potter shit," and just goes through the wall like it's the Matrix. And mounts the 50 caliber and starts killing people.
I will say, there's some just sort of back up Diwako. There is something that players you will notice after playing ArmA for a while is when AI clear buildings, and this is something I notice nkenny with Lamb's CQB module. It's really fascinating to watch, because when you throw a bunch of AI on a CQB module, you can see them walk through a house and follow that sort of, that nav mesh path they've been given, because they'll follow like genuinely pretty specific paths through houses as they move around, and it's really fascinating to watch as they move around the place. But yeah, sorry, I went off a bit of a rant there. I think it's time we hear from nkenny and Diwako. So nkenny, anything you want from Enfusion specifically?
So I'll talk about two things quickly. I'm absolutely agree with Drongo. One of the main or the chief worries in ArmA is just a lack of player feedback. ArmA 3 on release was a pretty decent walking simulator with shooting added as an afterthought. Today, with mods and effects things, it's passable, but it's still not very good. And I think that this lack of feedback runs through the entirety. So we've talked about AI right now. One of my pet peeves is it's difficult to see what the AI is thinking. This has been one of the things Diwako and I and Yoko actually have been working a lot on our end in our AI mod, right? Making it more accessible.
Yoko, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yoko should. He's actually very knowledgeable about the whole scripting and especially the Enfusion engine side of things. But so shout out to him. But that's a feedback problem. There's also a feedback problem in terms of the character avatars. So what the players look like, and I would have loved to see a bit more customization added to the player avatar. And it doesn't have to be much. I mean, if you've played ArmA for a while, you can actually look at somebody and just see how they move, and you can actually kind of guess who that player is. Especially
if scientist goggles on their whale.
Yeah.
I wish custom faces were better. I wish they were better. They suck.
But imagine if you could adjust your avatar's height by plus or minus 10%.
You mean everyone odd job game?
Whatever. I don't need the ability to sort of customize my nostril size or my nipple alignment, but just tiny things. Add that, and I'm so happy. I don't need the ability to customize nipple alignment, but just give me some extra stuff to configure. Imagine if you could configure how your avatar carries his weapon by default when it's not held ready. That would just give me a few different stances for that, and I would massively increase the sort of feedback I'd get when I'd look at another player in the room.
Oh, yeah, I want to
Well,
go back to
I know
early
you have one
ArmA
thing to
3
say here real
tactical
quick.
walk.
Real quick before that. I do know that the global mobilization devs tried to put in a different method of carrying your weapon, as far as I recall. I believe it was they tried to add walking with a machine gun. Hip-fired machine guns, yeah? Apparently that was not allowed to be included because of lag or something, like the massive performance hit or something. So I
know
don't know.
BI said no. I don't know why.
I know.
The reason for this was, as far as I remember, was they added it. It's actually in there, but it's only for AI. So you see AI running around like that.
Really?
The issue the issue was player movement, because there is animation sets for players and animation set for AI. So they're basically the same, but there are a few differences. For example, with aiming, I aimed on sights and stuff like that. And the issue was they couldn't add the animation to aim down sights with machine guns, because either there was no way to distinct the machine gun from a normal rifle, or if they added it for one machine gun, all machine guns would have it. I think it was one of these issues.
Gotcha.
So it was also something hard coded in ArmA again that
we hit that wall again. Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Also,
I would say on that exact topic, it's very relevant.
Here we go. We'll let him jump in.
One thing.
Oh,
one
no,
thing.
Severe.
No, go ahead, Severe. I can keep it in mind. Go ahead.
Just one thing, really quickly, because I saw it scroll past in Twitch chat, and I feel like this is something that a lot of people have probably asked for in the past, maybe 5 years ArmA's been out, or I think it's 7 years now, isn't it?
Yeah,
something like that. But
Jesus, don't say that. Yeah.
female models, female player models. That's something that ArmA, I feel like, should add.
I mean, yeah,
would you use one?
Yeah, I was gonna say. Look, we've got Zephyr. It's good. Zephyr, the GDA.
I would too.
Shut up. Jesus Christ, well, we've worked with that. That's sort of one of those things where I'd be fine with them as long as they have the same skeleton as male models. It sort of comes to the thing where ArmA's skeletons, the amount of effort that goes into them, as anyone who fucking has tried to use There Is Only War or Operation Trebuchet, like anyone who has tried to use a different fucking a unit with a different skeleton will know they are really, really painful to use. So I know ArmA 2 had them. They were again just men, and if they picked up guns, the game crashed. So it's because
that just speaks of poor integration, But,
well, I think they just didn't have animations for holding weapons. If you forced them to have a weapon, they would the game would explode. So,
does DayZ have female models?
Yep.
I think it
does.
Yeah,
I feel like the Enfusion's going to have a whole new. Go ahead, Kenny. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be it's not going to be a technical issue in terms of the animation system or anything like that.
Well,
I do think that Swear makes a good point in terms of adding female models. It's definitely something that deserves a bit of attention, and I'm not going to essay too much on that. I'll just say I'm completely in agreement with Sphere. Add female models. Get it.
I'm the kind of opposite there with the thing is, at the end of the day, I can play ArmA if you're all fucking stickmen. I seriously don't care. I'm one of the people who hates when we add, cosmetic mods for anything. I would be fine with it as long as it's just not taking dev time for anything else. So if it's a case of, because I am aware of how much time goes into skeletons and animations, because each skeleton needs its own animations generally for when it comes to something like, like There Is Only War or like the Orcs and that sort of stuff. When they're doing these custom skeletons, and I know GDA is doing one now as well. If it's just using male animation stuff, all for it, fucking brilliant. Just fucking stick that on, because there's basically no dev time there compared to animations.
I mean, I'm not asking for like boob physics. I'm asking for like female player models.
You sure? I don't know.
I mean,
if dev time was spared for boob physics,
look, brother. Look, brother. It all looks the same underneath the plate carrier, okay?
Which, kind of that's what gets me at the end of the day. I'm not looking at myself for ArmA. I don't give a shit how I look. I only care. The one thing I care about in ArmA Ops is, can I tell apart my squad leads from like the general infantry? And that's generally by the color of their hat. And if so, then I'm happy. But yeah, Whale, do you want to get into your point? Which we've been
I have a bunch of little points that I've stored up. So just a direct response to what was just discussed. I think it should be a high priority for BI to get some female models in the game. I think Enfusion is going to have a fairly new rigging system. It's not going to just carry over the same skeletal setup they have from Real Virtuality. I doubt that. I feel like they're going to get something new they've set up for DayZ.
God, I hope
Maybe
so.
it'll include better animation blending and stuff like that. Support from mod developers, that'd be great. But the heavy lifting is getting the skeleton there in the first place. And if they have a base male model and a base female model, that saves mod makers a lot of work. And most importantly, people who play ArmA that happen to be female don't have to get called a guy every 10 seconds if they're not talking all the time. Because they will always say he or him when they're playing ArmA. And I know full well I usually do. Unless someone goes so far as to put pronouns in their name. I've seen people do that in game just so people don't call them he in third person when referring to them if they're not actively using their voice all the time, because everybody looks like a dude in game.
I'll be real, dude. If it came even with female models, I'm still gonna be calling people he when fucking bullets are flying. Like, it is a 99% correct guess, and also I'm diving for cover while CSAT's trying to fucking shoot my nipples off. I'd rather just scream, "Hey, you grab the fucking machine gun."
You need to use the tactical they, Rimmy. You got to use the tactical they.
Yes, it's 100%.
Okay, so that's the
tactical.
first bit. The second bit, earlier you guys mentioned unique animations for carrying weapons. Coalition was just considering adding a C-clamp mod, which lets you be way too tactical and extremely modern, where you carry the gun by grabbing it around the barrel like you're super cool. It turns out the requirement for that is having pretty much a brand new weapon model for every weapon that you want to override. And it's not a huge amount of extra space, but it's usually not worth it. And it's just another example of what could be supported better in the future. As for other stuff for Enfusion, I said most of my... generally speaking, I just like the scheduler improved or completely thrown out and rewritten. And I think support for female skeletons would be nice too.
There's something...
to be honest, the skeleton will be the same. If you look at DayZ, the skeletons are the same. The main issue are the assets themselves. So, for example, for every West, you need a male West type version and then a female type version because of the different proportions. And then, of course, you need a model for when the thing is just thrown on the floor. So that's how it is in DayZ right now. So it's just
so how in DayZ, when you have the model, like the hierarchy of the configs, does it look similar to what's already going on with ArmA 3?
Actually, no idea. Never looked at the config.
Yeah.
So
well, hopefully it'll be different, and they still have time to change it. Fingers crossed.
I was going to say real quick, the one thing I was talking about for nkenny's about AI and AI feedback and stuff. That is, I think, one of the biggest thing that kills me in ArmA is people who don't realize that suppressive fire actually works in vanilla. It is a thing that exists and it will function. But ArmA's feedback for AI doing things are really fucking bad. Like, by vanilla, there is no visual system for AI being suppressed. And which is something that Lambs is obviously, you've added panicking, and I think panicking and fleeing animations, haven't you? Is that it? He's not
behavior.
Yes, behavior.
Behavior.
Yes. And that sort of stuff is fucking incredible. Where I can go, holy shit, those guys are actually like panicking, surprised, like, okay, we've done good, go get them, fucking, they're being pinned down, let's move, and you can see that versus vanilla ArmA, where if you turn on, tracer effects, I can see that spraying a machine gun at this guy has caused him to become way less accurate and it caused him to become dumber tactically. He's no longer acting as aggressive, but just for the average player visually, they think that nothing's happening and the AI is just doing what they always do. Which is, it's something that really sort of annoys me there, where, I know that it exists, I know this system exists, but the feedback is so poor that you just can't really get this, get a feeling of it happening in game. And sort of that's actually one thing I love as well, is the, you guys make Lambs, you make the squad lead do like hand signals when he gives, is it when he gives group orders? Or do they all do it? Or, so what is the trigger for doing that? What causes them to do those hand signals? Isn't that
it's changed recently?
Well, yeah, we're sort of rewriting the core FSM, but even in the old one, there's different types of group level tactics that are employed, and these are associated with certain hand signals, and they're even more strict in actually the next rewrite. So if you stand outside and look at them, you can actually sort of figure out what they're on about. If you look at
Yes.
the group leader, there's also actually voice callouts, which is a pretty cool system. So if you're close enough,
Yes, that's
you
another
can
one we
actually
hear as
hear
well.
them. Yeah, calling their sort of tactics, and that has also been even better implemented in the upcoming. I'm plugging my the mod here a bit. Sorry, but
That's fine. Go ahead. That's what the whole reason we're on here.
It's a
Don't
good
worry.
mod.
I
Plug
plug
away.
Lamb enough.
Please.
Everyone, go plug and download Lamb. That's brilliant. Fucking love it.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's definitely
that's the whole feedback thing.
I'll say that like that. I think the movement, like the actual animation, makes them feel so much more alive and so much more like actual enemy combatants as compared to AI. You can see visually, oh shit, they've heard us. They've given, like, he's giving orders. You know, it's one of those situations where, like, you know, Band of Brothers, yeah, right. In Band of Brothers, like, you know, all those scenes where like they're looking at Germans and you can see the German squad leader giving his orders. It's that sort of situation where you're like, oh shit, there's a squad leader, like he's just told his squad to go forwards or whatever. That stuff is fucking amazing for me, and it's actually gotten to the point where it used to be that if you saw someone doing animations like that, or if you saw someone leaning around a corner, you would just be like, oh, that's a player. And my guys, my unit has sort of been caught out a few times being killed by these AI because they've gone, no, he just leaned around a corner and looked at me and then made a hand signal. He's a player. And then a few minutes later, they just get fucking domed by him because it's a fucking AI. And it is absolutely fascinating to see. It's so much more fun to play that way. Seeing the AI just be so much more dynamic and responsive and so much less fucking robot. It's really fun. So, yay, go Lambs, go fucking.
Gotta get
Lambs.
those players wondering how the Zeus is remote controlling non-AI at once.
No, that is actually, yeah, I've been accused of remote controlling AI before, and I'm like, I haven't remote controlled AI this entire operation. That is just like Lambs and the AI doing signals and fucking running at you. I had this as well where people are like, oh man, my house got breached. And they stormed the house. Why the fuck did you remote control me and kill me? I'm like, I didn't do that. That was just the AI, dude. Like, well, it turns out when the server runs at higher than 5 FPS and we're using some cool little features, the AI will outgun you if you're not playing smart. It's sort of, God, I love that stuff. Sorry, I'll stop jerking off Lambs for 5 seconds. Diwako, do you want to wrap us up? Anything that you want from Infusion? Radar system?
Yeah. Maybe they can finally add DUI or STUI stuff, which they wanted to do in ArmA 3 as well, but didn't for some reason.
They?
Maybe they
did
can
they
add
really?
that.
Was it like, did they talk
yeah, they got
to
halfway.
modders,
It looked
or...
crappy.
They were halfway in there. You still can see the texture file for them, for example.
Huh. I didn't know that.
So it was all there, just the scripts were missing, basically. So, yeah, DI also uses one style for that. So you can basically switch it to the Bohemia style, and that's basically how it looked like.
Hang on. All right, hang on. I gotta do this on stream now. Let's find the Bohemia style. Go on.
So, and the other thing that I really want is basically, again, I want a little more access to the core functions of the engine, of the AI especially. For example, when you mentioned earlier that they lean left and right, you can't do that. You can't script that. That's all in engine.
Well, I think the main thing is the combination of leaning and hand signaling is what causes players to go, that must be must be another player. By the way, I've just switched on the Bohemia Interactive one. I see what you mean. It does look like shit. Wow, that's it's not nice.
It's kind of tactical.
No, it's really it's just grey and horrible. The dewy one looks so much more natural. The sort of the dark.
You call it dewy?
But Dewey, yeah, I call it Dewey.
Dewy?
I call it Dewey.
Dewey Squad Radar.
I call it Dewey Squad Radar. It just looks so much nicer, especially the fade out and the edges. Sorry, go on. We're cut off. Good on. We're yelling about his mod, but please go on.
That was actually all I want to say. Most of the things that I had a gripe with the RV engine, I actually fixed in DayZ already. Like stuff like avatar movement. Basically in ArmA, every movement on AI and players is based on animations. You most likely notice it when you run. And
and you get stuck
your
in
weapon, you suddenly run a few steps more because the animation is that way. It's like,
I hate that so much.
I've died so many times
all
from
the
that.
time.
Oh god, yeah.
And and I see it's actually avatar pillbox based now. If you run around, and it's so much nicer.
All right.
Is it separated sections of the body, or is it truly like animation blending here?
It doesn't have anything to do with animation blending so far. It's just about the movement, what I meant. But yeah, they have also animation blending now. And it's fine because we already saw footage, or it's already implemented. You can actually lie down, and when you turn around 180 degree, you actually lie on your back, and it's all animation blended, and it's nice. I really want this in ArmA,
good.
but
yeah,
hopefully we'll get it.
And another thing was, it's basically a little bit basically a little bit technical, I believe. Decoupling the rendering pipeline thread from the simulation thread, let's say like this. Basically, make the rendering asynchronous to everything else. Right now, ArmA needs to wait for the script and everything else that's going on in one frame to pass and to simulate before it can render the next frame, which means we are CPU bound. If they see they decouple that. So in DC, you suddenly have way better FPS, even though the backbone is basically the same.
Holy shit! Wow, that's fucking incredible. God damn. Need to play more
of that. This problem in ArmA 3 especially infects display controls when you're rendering stuff every single frame. Yep. For example, if I bring up DUI right now and then I put it away, even though it's so well written, thank you, Diwako, it still costs 3 FPS. And you know what? With this problem, the higher your FPS is, the more frames you're going to lose from things that are displaying because it runs every frame and there's no way to prevent that. Well, unless you're using a scheduler, which you also can't use.
Something I touched on there.
Using performance from CBA. You can actually set the refresh rate for the UI even to 10 seconds if you want.
Yeah.
So
make it like Aliens. You got your motion tracker. Yeah. So I was going to say that it's something that people may not know. This is like a really dumb thing in ArmA. I swear, I don't know how 100% true it is, but basically that lowering your graphic settings to low may reduce your FPS because it starts to put everything onto the CPU instead of putting anything on the GPU. Am I right or wrong, or is that a rumor? Okay, right there.
No,
good.
it's actually
correct.
Good.
For par for a few settings. It's actually correct for a few settings.
It's just something that's so fucking wacky to me. But yeah, I think that pretty much.
So yeah, if you want to hear something that will maybe make your blood boil a little, I was talking to Dwarden about a few things and asked him how much time will it take to actually add this decoupling of the rendering pipe and simulation pipe, to add this to ArmA. And he was like, yeah, it's like 2 days. 2 days of work.
What? Oh,
capture that man. Put him in a dungeon.
And I was like, oh no, maybe it was maybe a week. It was not much. It was doable, to say like this.
We'll do what ZF did and just pay the DayZ devs to fucking do it for ArmA. I don't know if you heard this, but ZF
tranquilizer gun. He wakes up in a basement. Code.
ZF paid the DayZ devs to put in features that they were going to be put in, but they wanted them put in early, and so they got them as a mod. They got that fucking sorted ahead of time. Fuck. That makes me mad. That does.
But yeah, in the end, it was like, really, no, we're not going to add that. We can't put more time into ArmA. ArmA is like is sadly an end of life product now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was also talking to Deadman about it. He saw the internal ticket about this feature. He said, just lol, no one closed it. So it's dead.
God damn. Man, one day. Well, unannounced Project 4. I'll be fucking 30 by the time it comes out, and maybe we'll actually get some fucking good for it. I don't know. I will say, as much as we like to shit on ArmA, I still remember ArmA 2. I still remember having a top-of-the-line PC and having about 10 frames in a normal mission. It was just, oh god. ArmA 2, what a fucking game. That game, I swear, was negatively optimized.
Those were the days.
I remember, as much as we want to rag on ArmA for all the shit it does, booting up ArmA 3 for the first time, I was like, Jesus Christ, what did they do? They made it amazing. And now I've played it for several years, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, what did they do? They could have made it so much better. It's an endless cycle. But alright, I think we'll kick it along now to something that I know Drongos wants to talk about. Oh god.
Okay.
One last comment before we get off this topic. Action menu.
Fuck the action menu. I hate it.
I'm so glad they killed it in DC.
Yeah.
Explosives.
Yes. So Drongo, I think can we touch on this real quick before we jump onto our next topic? why in the goddamn do you not use ACE? Because one of the nicest things that ACE does is puts your explosives into ACE Interact in its own tab, not in your action menu.
As I said, like I play with either one guy or two guys, and
Yeah.
I looked at the features of ACE and I thought this is probably gonna disrupt the flow of our gameplay. So we've just this is the first time I've ever tried it. So maybe I'll give it a proper whirl.
Oh, there we go. We're ace pilling him. Nice.
He's pilling. Ace pilling.
Welcome to the
one get away.
Yeah, it's
now
something
you
where
behave your scripts.
I physically cannot play ARMA. Like when I play ARMA in campaign or whatever, I'll go to do something, and then I'll just be like, wait, what? Wait, this is broken. Why is the mission bugged? And then it will just take me a few moments to realize, oh, ACE isn't on. My brain just can't handle ARMA without ACE anymore. It's such an fucking like inbuilt feature to my my mind in the ARMA experience, which is why I went so salty when they fucked with the medical system, and made it its new system, which I think we're running on here. But yeah, no, it's definitely something I would recommend anyone who's playing ARMA. Well, after you've learned how to play the game in vanilla, ACE is just one of those. It's got so many nice features. It's got so many nice little things that you can touch up on that sort of that turns into the game that I really enjoy playing. I don't think I would have ever played ARMA, even ARMA 2, because we played with ACE back then as well. I don't think I ever would have played it as much as I had without ACE. It just takes it from that level of like it's a bit of a janky war game, bit of an arcadey shooter to okay, this is a fun war game, fun simulator to play sort of thing. All right, but
I'll give it a whirl.
Look, I highly recommend it.
Right.
But I will actually one question before Drongo. It's just a weird thing. Just because something I haven't done in so long, and I used to do especially when I was younger. When you build your operations with your mate, do you play alongside friendly Blue 4 AI? Do you have like you're playing alongside squads or like an army of AI or whatever? Or is nkenny not on the channel? Hang on. Oops, there we go. Problem solved. Right, go on.
Yeah, usually if there's two of us or three of us playing, we'll play as squad leaders. Though there's a few missions we play where it's just there's no squad, it's just each of us.
Okay. Well, it's just I just remember doing that all the time as a kid. I used to throw like, all right, this is my Blue 4 team. It was advanced green and tan army men. I'd put my Blue 4 and my Op 4, and then I'd take command and I'd high command them around, and I'd run around as a squad. And that was the final mission of Harvest Red, as far as I recall. Dogs of War was very much that. You played as basically like a squad leader, and you can as high command and stuff, and that sort of stuff was so much fun to me. But it's something that we cannot afford these days because we've got players to play those roles, and putting Blue 4 AI in is server FPS that could be put towards Op 4 AI to kill us, sort of thing, and sort of that moment.
Yeah, well, if you've got human players, then it makes sense to use them, obviously.
Yeah, it's just something I kind of miss and kind of weird to feel about, because there's so many systems in the game, and I will always say that ArmA's AI leading system, the AI command system, is not that bad. It's actually really fucking good. If you want to see a bad one, go play Hidden and Dangerous 2. Amazing video game. One of the most ball-achingly painful command systems. Every command has its own button. It is awful. Ugh. ArmA at least realizes the power of the dynamic button, where you can just press F1 and press spacebar, and they'll do whatever you're looking at. It's great. They'll attack the enemy you're looking at. They'll get in the vehicle you're looking at. They'll get on the gun you're looking at, that sort of thing. Or they'll move to the place that you're looking at. So good.
It's great up until the point that they start sliding through walls or, not shooting
they're
at
sliding through walls, they're doing it for your team, okay? So that's the good part.
Look, the sliding through walls thing is done because trying to actually get the AI to stick to buildings is just... You don't want to try it. Like, I think AI... I think we would, if we weren't complaining about sliding through walls, we'd be complaining about AI that physically cannot enter buildings. Because they just, can't figure out how to get through a doorway, sort of thing.
I mean, I like, you want it hacky or you not want it at all?
Yeah.
I feel like there's probably something to be said about, obviously, the ArmA engine and the problems it has with AI incorporation. But to be entirely honest, my issues with the ArmA AI are specifically just stuff like that. Like, it would be perfectly fine otherwise, if it wasn't for the fact that every once in a while, like the AI does some
illusion
Agent
breaks.
Smith shit, like jumps through a wall, or you know,
Yeah.
something like that.
Their gun pokes through the wall. Like, that is honestly, it's one of those things in ArmA where I'm like, okay, are the AI actually shooting us from an angle we can't see, or is this wall in front of us just not existing and they're shooting through it? I'm not sure. You know, that sort of play off. But all right.
Well, that's where I started too. And I'll make this real quick.
Yeah.
With CTI back in the day, and you'd get to play with your army guys and send them around. You have a squad of your own to lead. And you know what? If you're in a unit these days and you want to go back and reminisce those days, you could always make like a co-TVT with players on one side as the enemy now, and you or some other guy that plays the mission on the other side, controlling and commanding some AI to fight them. In fact, AFI has a Blind Zeus thing, but you can't talk about it too much, Severe, even though Blind Zeus is exciting, because then we'll go on for half an hour about this.
Hold on. We've been building our own script for that. Literally. Scofer and Shinobi have been building that for a while. We've been building a Blind Zeus script. How the fuck?
No, well, you can talk to Severe about that.
God fucking damn. All right, well,
also,
this is... God damn it.
So back in the day, only a year ago, there was a command and control script, C2, which is pretty cool. If you're controlling an AI squad, you could also use that to get a little more nuance out of it. So those out there listening now or in the distant future on YouTube, if you would be interested in going back to those good old days of playing around in the toy bin, you could do that, even though you're in a big unit, by making a mission yourself.
I will definitely say that
take any slot you want if you make the mission, usually.
You're describing what we're building right
cool.
now. So what we've been designing for a while and working on is I wanted to do, and so this is sort of a solution to a problem I have, where I enjoy operations where you can fail, which is why I like scripting operations. So when we get beaten by lambs, it feels fair. When mortars hit us from lambs, it feels fair. When a Zeus uses fire support and drops mortars on your head, it never ever feels fair. It feels like that guy's a cunt and he should go die because he's just clicked the mortar button and die now, right? So when we lose in a scripted mission, that feels fun and fair. It's like, okay, that's acceptable. We didn't play well enough, and we lost too many soldiers, and that's it. Oh, for fuck's sake, my internet's dying again. Help! God, my God. I load back in and Diwako's out back with a tractor. Right. There we go. Anyway, basically, the point is that doesn't feel fair. There is no way for that to feel like you're like, okay, I'm playing a fun video game, and I've lost, and it feels fair and fun because the Zeus, who has infinite knowledge and infinite power and infinite ability to spawn enemy units, has beaten us. It's just not. I can't find that a fun game mode to lose in. I can find it fun to play in and be like, oh, we play a mission, and we end up, we wrap it up, and it's a game. But I can't find it fun to lose in. So what we decided was we wanted to build a way for Zeuses to fight players and have it feel fun. And one of those methods was, of course, the blind Zeus. So they weren't able to see enemy units if OP4, or whatever side they were playing, if their units couldn't see the players. To them, the players would be invisible, and that sort of stuff. And we're sort of building off of that, and sort of very much like you said, Whale, trying to sort of go, one player is commanding the AI versus the other players are just people trying to murder the rest of them.
Let's go, sneak in there.
Come on, get back in the house. I'm trying to fucking put on my office chair. Oh, Diwako's just sliding around. Hang on, give me a sec. You have to move a sec, Whale. There you go. Take cover.
Oh, the pain is unbearable.
There we go.
Oh,
Give me a second. I've almost got it. Almost got it. Almost got it. No!
You killed Drongo. You killed Drongo.
Drongo's fucking dead.
Just give me a second. Severe, get in here already before we go mental.
I'm not Chef Emerald.
Okay, I'm coming in. I just have to put together my next time fit.
I think the idea is that in that dish, which I pronounced incorrectly.
I gotta look good. Look good.
All right, nice quick uniform change there. Oi, get
That's
the door. Were you born in a barn?
You're letting the
Yeah,
alien.
actually.
It's supposed to make the whole texture of the dish be like the spaghetti without ruining the, conflicting with the texture. Anyways, how about ArmA stuff?
Right, yeah. Next question, since we've been so delayed by these internet crashes.
Mod IP. So, we've got different sides of this. We have on one end, I'd call RHS, who generally does not want you to in any way modify and republish. Of course, that's reasonable. And on the other end, you've got Swap, which we all know and probably not love. And what they like to do is take a lot of assets and heavily enforce their own IP, even though they have stolen assets, which most people do not smile upon. So I'm not going to add a ton to this topic right away because we do only have about 20 minutes, but there's a lot of people
we'll
itching.
time because of the fucking...
There's a lot of people that
do
want to talk about it. I would actually like to start with Diwako, if you guys don't mind.
Man, I was going to start with Drongo, who I know has... Do we want to save Drongo to last then? Because I know he's got a lot to say on this.
What if we went, since a lot of people have a lot to say, what if we just went from Diwako clockwise?
All right, that'll work, sure.
All right. So yeah, IP is, well, mod IP or rather IP in general is a really touchy topic. I had my fair share with it as well. People re-uploading my mod to the workshop, modifying it, even to a point where I DMCA'd someone. He then deleted the mod, re-uploaded it again, and modified it to the point that you can't actually use the debug and development tools in ArmA anymore, so he can hide it further. To the point that I actually had to disassemble the mod by hand and prove that it was actually my mod that's being re-uploaded. So that kind of shades you when it comes to IP enforcements. And it's really a hot topic. From a player perspective, they don't care. They just want to play the game and use mods, and it's all fun.
That's what drives me up the bloody wall. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, but from a modder perspective, or rather, let's say content creator, because it also applies to videos and everything. And from someone who uses that content on their server, it's a vastly different perspective. If the server owner, if they want to do it legit, they have to look at the license of the mod, because a mod is software. Software comes with licenses. Even if you don't attach one, you still need to adhere to the license that is ArmA being built on. And as a modder, you can just basically take the license and append your own conditions to it in the way you want the mod to be used. For example, what many modders do is they add an appendage that you are not allowed to use your mod on a server that is monetized. So monetized servers are basically, you pay real life money and you get something in return on the server that gives you an advantage. And those game modes that use monetization, let's say they are live servers.
Altus Live.
Yeah.
Wait, no, not Alive.
Altus Live.
Yeah.
Altus
Alive is a
Live.
very nice mod, and I like those guys a lot.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
It was probably badly pronounced by me, but yeah, I mean live service and service, Russian service like the Armstalker service, not Armstalker themselves, but people that are running Armstalker and their own stuff.
Yeah.
They do monetize quite a lot, and it's a pain in the ass because they don't give a shit about IP rights. That's what I said. It kind of shades you. Normally, I'm pretty lenient with people re-uploading my stuff, and yeah, it's fine when small communities re-upload my mod and they don't have many subscribers. I don't really care about that. And well, then there's those people, the big mods, the big servers that they kind of just take your stuff because they don't care. They just re-upload it. There are many reasons for re-uploading mods on the workshop. For example, the workshop doesn't really have version control. When a modder updates their mod, it just updates. You can't stop that.
Yeah.
That's the main reason why people re-upload mods. And the other reason what I heard was they want just one mod that all the people download and it's all in one package. And to those people, you don't know how to use a workshop correctly, because the workshop has a dependency system. You can just add a dependency to your mod, and all the other people have to download the other mod if they want to join your server. But yeah, it's a huge topic. There's tons of stuff in there that you need to look into. Everyone has a different opinion. And I can actually agree with RHS and also Cup, which are they also really don't like when you re-upload their stuff. So I can actually agree with them. DMCAing people is something as kind of an ease of mind thing. You don't need to bother with the re-upload anymore, and the re-upload may get outdated once you update your own mod, and you may get bug reports from an old version. And that happened to Cup quite a lot, because Cup is a huge mod, tons of content in there. And it actually went to one point that they had so many bug reports, or rather false bug reports from older versions that were already fixed that was becoming unbearable.
Yeah.
So there's so much to that topic, and I don't really want to keep that all to myself. I think Drongo has probably different opinions about that, and Kenny probably also. And the last thing that I want to say is, if you release a mod or release a script or anything, attach your own license to it, please. It's weird to say that, but it's still software. Attach your own license that you want, so you can basically tell people how you want them to use your mod. And it's a big deal. Normally, only a big deal in larger commercial products, obviously, but still.
All right. We'll kick along Drongo, because I think we've all got something to say here, but we'll keep it as strict as we can.
Yep. Follow the license. And it doesn't matter how weird the license is. I use different types of licenses depending on how I feel about what I've put into the mod and maybe what I want other people to get out of it. And, you know, if someone says, oh, well, why do you put that license? The only answer that I need to give is because I said, because I feel like it. That's all the answer I need to give. It's my work and it's my license. And again, I put different licenses on things. And in the past, I think when I first released my APS mod, a lot of people were saying, oh, why do you have such a strict license? This is stupid. And I looked at their workshops of everyone that said that. Not a single one of them had released a mod. So maybe there are people out there that are modders that, you know, geez, this license is stupid. But they knew enough to respect my opinion on it, I guess. And just recently, I've done my first DMCA, and it's not a real good feeling, but I feel it was warranted. So, in short, follow the license and definitely put licenses with all your work, even if that license is anyone can do anything they want with it.
Yeah.
That's my take.
Well, I'll step in with just something slightly different there. It's before I get into the swap, because I fucking hate swap and I'll go on it forever, but the first thing I'll say is ArmA is very weird when it comes to licenses. I think obviously when it comes to Diwako, when it comes to Drongo, you guys are pretty much A-okay in the clear because it's your software, you fucking wrote it. ArmA though is very weird because at the end of the day, you're writing, or you're making, you know, a mod for a game that already exists, and what you're, depending on what mod you're doing, you might have no right to use what you're using. The things that come straight to mind is There Is Only War, ACE, actually. ACE doesn't have the rights to the names of the guns that they change the vanilla weapons to. Every fucking video, the reason why, you know, video games have, you know, the AK, I don't know, actually, I think 47, I don't know if 47's a, what's called like a public use term anymore, or now rather, but like, you know, the reason
like the
why
vehicle names and everything, I get you.
Well, yeah, vehicle names, that sort of stuff. The reason why those names are faked in video games is because you need to actually go and like ask the people who make those and own those things in real life for those fucking names. You know, you're not allowed to use it. That's why ACE does that. I hate it. I hate they do it, but they change the name of all the vehicles in the games to their real life counterparts. I fucking hate it. But there's a reason why they're called fake names in ArmA. You know, and There Was Only War. 40K is a fucking, you know, they don't have a license to use 40K. Not at all. Especially, you know, Star Wars, they haven't got a license to use that. It's kind of weird. It's a very odd and a very gray middle ground, I find, when I'm looking at those sort of licenses, where you're like, you know, There Is Only War, like, I respect their right as modders to, you know, sort of restrict on what they do, but at the same time, they're using content that they don't own. They don't own 40K. And I wish they did. I wish they had a straight up license to use it, because fuck, their mod is super, like, God, the amount of people who in 40K it's called community that love their mod is insane, you know, and then GDA is the same there. Obviously Star Wars as well has given people a good Star Wars game where they've just not had one for so long. But it is definitely a weird sort of system where it's kind of, it's odd to think about how it's enforced. And then comes swap, which has absolutely no fucking defense for it. It is a piece of shit, and everyone... and sorry, let me say again. Opposition team are a bunch of fucks. There we go. So basically, it's... To quickly summarize for Twitch chat, a long history of Swap is that they are a Star Wars mod who steals from other mod developers and video games. So they just asset rip from video games, and they also stole from other mod devs, which even led to other mod teams closing down because every time they released, Swap would just steal all of their new assets, put them in Swap, and go, Swap has had an update! Yay! Look at Swap! They even did it to the Map Maker as well. Map Maker released his map. A week later, Swap put out a big announcement that just finished a new map, and it was his map. They put that out as well. Imperial Assault was the name of one of the Star Wars mod teams that died because Swap just straight up stole it. And they would always try and be like cheeky about it. They took the Imperial Assault scopes and they swapped them 90 degrees, horizontally. They just flipped them horizontally so that all the text was backwards on the scope. But it's like, no, look, our scope doesn't look like yours. Look, it's our own scope. We built it.
Who buys that for half a second? they don't
have to fucking buy it. That's the problem. The biggest, and it's what Diwako said that pisses me off. And we even had a guy in the fucking Caden who ended up trying to defend this point, and it's something that infuriates me to no end, is that the reason why Swap is so popular is people sort of come in and they go, yeah, but Swap has all the toys. I just want to play Star Wars ArmA, and Swap has the AT-AT, Swap has the fucking AT-ST, Swap has this, Swap has that. Swap has all the toys. It doesn't matter that they're all broken, they don't work, because Swap can't code for shit. And all their vehicles are fucking jank. Like, when I joined the 501st, they did this whole tour of all the vehicles and all the droids that we would fight, right? It was in training. And it's like, all right, here's all the vehicles, here are all the types of droids. And what it was like, all right, this one's broken, this one's broken, this one's broken. Okay, you'll actually fight these guys. Okay, this one's broken, this one's broken. It basically came down to we'd fight, like, tri-droids and, like, the MTTs. And that was it. Everything else was just fucked and just didn't work. And that shit just, it just drives me up the wall because it's children who just go straight away just like, I want my toy now and I don't care who I hurt to get it. And, that's what led to fucking mod teams closing down because Swap was just Swap has a fucking Patreon. Swap's getting paid to steal mods. Dickheads. I hate them through and through, and to sum up Swap into one big bag of shit that they are, Swap added a ban list, so if you started their mod and your name was on this ban list, your game just crashed out immediately. And one of the people on this ban list, I believe, was Diwako, who is obviously from BI. And this then led to Swap being banned from the... it wasn't banned from the workshop. It was rather... they had a thing put in the workshop that said, this mod is incompatible with ArmA 3. And so their mods were made incompatible. I am... no dev team do I hate any more than the team behind Swap. Opposition team are a bunch of dickheads. And and they made a Starship Troopers mod. Guess what? Models were ripped from Gmod. So that's fun.
Stealing all the places.
Of all the places. The reason that someone figured that out is they looked at the hands and it was the fucking fingerless gloves from Gmod. That's what they were. They were like that was the fucking models they'd stolen. So fucking dumb. Anyway. I could go on forever. Whale, take it away, please, before I do.
I'll keep mine quick. I have two main points, the profound things, the important things I just want to get out right away. Mm-hmm. One, if you're a player or a unit leader, if you're creating a mod pack or just using it, just please respect the licenses that artists, that script makers, that mod makers set. They can say, like Drongo said, whatever they want, you just have to go with it. It's their property, it's their creation. On that note, some of them, and people get a little frustrated with this, do not want their property distributed whatsoever. And I think this was touched on earlier because they don't want to give support to people as they find this mod across the internet and come back to the locus, the origin of all of it, asking, hey, this version, from last year that got stolen and put out there, could I get some help setting it up? And the mod maker, no, he doesn't want to do that. He's not interested. And that's the reason a lot of mod makers don't distribute their mod out there, is because they're worried about having to give technical support to everybody. Those are the two main things. I would also say, as another thing, and touch on RHS real quick, their license is no derivatives, and yet a lot of units, no derivatives means if you change it, just don't distribute it. but a lot of units have pretty widely distributed mod packs that include RHS edits, whether it's just changes to the configs or actual edits of the models and textures. I was wondering what you guys thought about that personally, just outside of the strict lettering and interpretation, perhaps, of the license, whether in your mind morally that's okay or not. I'm on the fence.
The RHS license with the no derivative stuff is basically don't change anything from within RHS, as in do not change a PBO, for example, from RHS that's available on their workshop or otherwise downloads that they have. So you can basically make patch mods to update configs for them or other things. There are a few exceptions, however. For example, a few models and textures from some uniform you are not allowed to touch at all, not even with patch mods, because apparently that model was also sold to some military, and there's a license behind that, and it's a rather complicated in the end. So, but the general gist is don't modify the files that you get from the workshop from them. You can just make patch mods and don't touch certain uniforms.
That kind of reminds me in a sense of Iron Front I-44, if you guys remember that, the way that worked. Or just quick
it was a separate game, and they had a bunch of stuff that they put in ArmA 3.
It was a separate game, basically, and then they ported across that stuff to ArmA 2, actually, in the first place, and then to ArmA 3. And they ported it across, and the deal was, and this deal has actually just run up, so it's quite fascinating. Pretty soon we'll see the update. The deal was basically, if you wanted the high-resolution models, you had to go play Iron Front, the game. And if you wanted to play, ArmA, you had the low-resolution models, and then you could do that. I think you could also buy Iron Front and then get the high-resolution in ArmA, I think. I can't really... I don't think Iron Front's been a thing for a long time.
Those were supposed to be the terms, but I don't know if anyone actually went and did it.
Yeah, I don't think that has been a thing for a long time. But what's about to happen, IFA is actually approaching an update. They're about to update, because they've sort of had the release of the contract. They're now able to use the high-quality models in IFA 3, as far as I recall. But anyway, we'll kick it along now, unless anyone else has got anything to say. Otherwise, we'll kick it on to nkenny and hear his thoughts.
Sure.
All right, nkenny.
So, my thoughts pretty much mirror what has been said already. Stealing is bad. Okay. I come from a slightly different background. I'm not a developer. I come from academia. I studied philosophy, not coding or system development in any sense.
The AI thinks, therefore it is.
Well, does it? And also, do you want fries with that? But
oh man.
So from a more positive perspective on the issue of re-uploading, I hope people who listen to this do not get the sense that they shouldn't look at what these guys are doing or how they are developing these things. Because learning is okay. It's completely okay to pull something apart to understand what they're doing, I think. No matter what the license, I feel that is okay. Licensing is more about this distributing. I get it. Yeah, well, yes. Yeah.
Can I intersect there, Kenny?
Yes, certainly.
Basically, the picking apart part is if you don't distribute it to anyone else, and you have this just on your server, not on the server. There's also distributing already, only on a PC. So you can unpack a mod and look how they do things. This is actually reverse engineering. This is how you learn. This is fine.
This is okay with almost everybody. I would say there are still some people out there that throw down, oh, don't touch my stuff. Don't touch my toys.
Those people are there as well. There are a few mods that really don't like you to touch their PBOs at all. But to be honest, it's kind of dumb. But it's
those are very grumpy people generally.
So yeah.
So yeah, but I'm definitely on the sort of same page there. It gets a bit muddy when it gets to the sort of retelling. If I look at your mod and then I develop something very similar, what happens there? But you'll need to just use your own a matter of ethical evaluation. It is, after all, how
reaching out to people if there's any doubt whatsoever.
Yeah, you get some dead mods where you can't contact the author years and years after it's been
Actually,
put out into the void.
Yeah, we'll get to see if
That does
that's
happen.
something we do want to talk about. Well, I will definitely note that. Save that for a moment. Severe, your thoughts before we talk about that, because that's something I want to bring up.
All right, so I've got no particular interest in getting into the legalese of it because I'm not an expert on that.
What about the ethics?
So I kind of want to focus strictly on the rights and wrongs because I feel like that's something people will argue most about. They'll say it's totally subjective, but really it's not. There is a straight right and wrong in this thing. Obviously, if you're making a mod as a hobbyist involving something like 40K or Star Wars, a big franchise, you're doing that at your own risk, fully knowing that at some point, you might get a letter from a lawyer. At the end of the day, I don't think that's as ethically questionable as some of the other stuff that I've seen. Main point being, a majority of the content that people use on ArmA 3 that isn't part of the base game or the DLCs is created by content creators that don't get paid a fucking dime. They're doing it on their own time because they're putting time into their own community and getting something out of it. Enjoyment, recognition, whatever it might be. They're improving the gameplay experience of the players significantly, and they're not getting anything for it except a warm handshake.
Oh, I don't know. I give Drongo $1 a month.
Really? Well, you know what? That's fine. I actually wanted to touch on that as well. I'm getting into that. So it'd be really nice that if, as a community of players, we'd be able to stick to, and if you forgive me for the obvious reference here, stick to the light side of the force and respect the intellectual property of mod makers and programmers who pour their free time and hearts out into this fucking thing to make people happy for nothing. And there's the flip side of that too. I feel like mod makers who flip assets from other games or mods and use it as their own are scummy in their own right. And the fact that there's people out there who steal content from other creators in order to increase their imaginary plus rep is, first of all, it's fucking wrong. It's horrible. But as players who consume this type of content, we should be able to move away from that and remove the financial benefits that encourage that type of behavior. There's a lot of communities and other games that have made similar mistakes, and it never ends nicely. So I feel like there is a responsibility with players, the end user, to stop that type of behavior as well. That's my take on it.
I want to also add to that. For example, several big IPs like Star Wars and other one, they have a clause for community-made stuff. Since Disney had bought Star Wars, they removed the clause, so you're not really allowed to make content there anymore.
Yeah.
But for example, Halo, they thrive in that. They have a clause for that which basically says you can recreate our content, you can create new stuff in the universe, just label it that it's your thing, that's not an official stuff. And hey, maybe when we make a new game and your idea was really good, can take that. But it's completely fine. That's why the Halo mods are really thriving. They are being supported. And they're also not ripping content, which is really nice to see. It's really nice to see a mod that is basically from a game that's not ArmA being supported, and it works. It's all fine. So people like these, I would actually really like to support. Sadly, my unit doesn't really play Halo stuff, so we're not using their mods, but still, stuff like this is really exceptional.
No, I would say, like, I think, was it the Sins the Prophet teams? Is probably one of the best modding teams I think I've seen around, just in terms of the amount of stuff that they do, the amount of work they put in. They basically built a whole new game on their own when it comes to models and stuff, and that's supported by Halo and that sort of stuff. But what, I don't know, was it 343 these days? Yeah. Fucking infinite.
Does the Halo mod teams in 3 actually have like official support? Is that like an acknowledgement that they've received?
Well, I mean, they're working under the.
I don't believe they have official support.
Yeah, I don't think Optrade has it. But I know Sins is fucking massive. They're a huge team because they've moved to several different games now, and apparently they're starting. Was it an ArmA one, or is there's a new group starting on ArmA? I know. Which I'm quite excited
for. The new
Halo
ArmA mod. I've heard about
but
it.
It's going to be more humans versus insurrectionists, and I want to die. But yeah, I definitely want to touch on one thing Wales said there was dead mods. So I personally I hate piracy up until the point that vaporware or inaccessibility becomes an issue. That goes for pretty much everything. When it comes to TV shows, you know, I watch my anime, I watch my boys legally, I watch all that stuff. But the moment that you tell me I'm in Australia, so I can't see that TV show, so fuck you. I'm sailing the seven seas. You know, that's how I work. Same for video games. I buy all my video games, but if the game, for instance, Ruse, that's a classic one. Can't get that game anymore. Physically cannot purchase that game. You know, at that point, I feel it's 100% fine to just go download that off the internet, that sort of thing. Oh, hey, there's Optrodev in chat. There's Lux Volans in there. There you go.
Yeah, Lux is in the chat.
Apparently, they have an inside source that has given that kind of nod. Well, there you go. Fun times. But no, I definitely feel that at the point that, you know, you can no longer contact the person who is originally in charge of it, or that person is dead, hasn't been seen for 5 years, they've gone to the jungle and never returned from the Amazon. At that point, I feel it's 100% fine to re-upload their mod, to put, especially because when it comes to this sort of stuff, when it comes to sort of ArmA 2, ArmA 3 early days, there wasn't the workshop, and the workshop is now how a lot of people do their stuff, you know. And I've gotten permission from some people before to re-upload, and other times it's just been I've been completely unable to contact this person. One of those was the Melee mod that I mentioned earlier. It was an animation mod. I didn't actually re-upload that. I found someone else had re-uploaded that. It was basically the only way to get it, like, they'd got it working in ArmA 3 again, because the original version of the mod was very scuffed, and I don't think the author had been online since, like, 2014. And at that point, you know, I feel it's fine and fair, you know, if you're going to do that sort of stuff. I do agree, definitely, someone going back and asking for technical support from the mod developer, that's certainly an annoyance. But I kind of feel like at that point that, you know, the dev's been gone for that many years, they're probably not checking their private messages anymore on Bohemia forums. I think it's going to be far less of an issue. I think it is still absolutely scummy to claim it as your own. You can at least have the sort of respect that Skyrim modders have. You know, when a Skyrim, yeah, I can see Severe's left. I don't know what he's doing. Skyrim modders, you will often see this. This is something quite fascinating to me. I don't see it often with ArmA, but with Skyrim mods, you will see someone be like, okay, you know, this is my mod, you know, I don't know, fancy horses. You know, I'm James, I'm editing the mod now, but this mod was edited last by Steve, and it was originally made by, you know, Joan. And, you know, it's like, I've seen mods with, like, 3 different mod devs over time, as a mod dev is just going, well, I'm not working on the mod anymore, have a good one, have the mod, bye-bye. And they stop working on the mod, and then someone else picks up the mod and carries it on. I think that's the most healthy way to go about it, and it means that the community keeps these useful and good mods well maintained while still remembering who actually made them.
There are actually several mods like that for ArmA.
Can you name a few? Just because I just don't know off the top of my head. Could you, like, name some?
Tifa.
Oh, Tifa. Oh yeah, of course. Right.
Yeah.
Of course. Holy shit. Yeah. How the hell? Severe.
Oh.
Persistence. Put it away.
That's just there for the end of the episode.
No, it's persistence, remember? Take the fucking bomb back. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
Maybe the most explosive Bad Frag.
Mods that are basically like that.
Yeah, so
Tifa, AEST. Basically, AEST maintainers are also rotating in and out because people lose interest in.
But they're still
ArmA.
like the same AEST team, aren't they?
Yeah.
At like.
There's still some of the originals. For example, Joker is still there, I believe. But it's also kind of something, as I said, with rotating members. So the torch is being given to the next person, basically.
I was going to say that. The baton's being passed instead of the baton on the ground and being picked up.
It's not the exact same thing I'm describing, because in this case, that's a team who has kept all the team's assets, and, you know, people join the team and leave the team. That's a different thing to what I'm describing from a singular mod dev or even a singular mod dev team taking over from someone who has basically been like, all right, I'm done, I'm leaving, you know, I'm not modding anymore, here's the stuff, goodbye. And then someone else picks that up and carries it on, like, separately. It's not like an internal team change, is the only real difference there. That's just sort of my argument for the reason why I think there are definitely times where it's fine to re-upload someone's mod, especially if they have not been seen on the internet since the prehistoric era. And, you know, because, you know, why lose it? Why, you know, they put all this hard work into making a really good mod, or, you know, because some of the scripts, or like the mods that we use are fucking ancient at this point. Like, you go on the Bohemia forums, oh, look, a good example I have. Oh, go on.
for example, enhanced movement. The
Yeah.
person that
Oh, yeah.
originally made enhanced movement is, well, he's still around, but not really into ArmA modding anymore. He doesn't respond to anything anymore. I actually wanted to pick up the torch, basically, because I wanted to introduce enhanced movement in my unit. And I saw, okay, yeah, the scripts are a little bit wonky. There can be improvements done, but I couldn't get a hold of this guy. I got in contact with other people that know him and still talk to him, and it was very clear he didn't really want his stuff to be changed, modified. So we have something similar to that now. Someone picked up the torch in another way.
Yeah.
He still requires the original mod, but makes its own wrapper around it. So he's not modifying anything.
That's
but he's
exactly what I
using
was about to
his
say. Yeah,
assets.
is enhanced movements redux or rework? What is it? Wait, what's
Rework.
the name?
Rework.
Rework. Yeah. So what is your feelings on that? Is that, you know, I think 100% that's okay. I think if you're making it your own mod attached to someone else's mod, I think that's 100% a-okay fine.
Yeah, that one, rework literally requires you to have full enhanced movement loaded, and all it does is add a new interface with which to use the animation from before.
There are
Everything
new
else is
animations,
rewritten.
though, aren't there? I thought there was new animations.
No.
From my
Basically,
knowledge, it's the same animation.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the same animations. It's the same object that's attached to your feet, so you can walk on things. But that's also a nice, janky way how to make things work in ArmA, by the way.
Oh yeah,
funny.
Objects. You want to talk about what's called fast roping, the invisible tripods?
Yes. Yeah, there's some janky ways. But yeah, this rework mod is basically everything that's script related, how things work. It's all redone. But the original things like animations and the model itself, they're still kept in there, because making animations for ArmA is a bitch. No one wants to do that, especially if you need to process animations like climbing. And Severe just left the building.
I don't know what Severe's doing. It's very afraid. I can see him going to the arsenal in the corner of my eye. Anyway.
What I want to do, I want to get Deadman on the podcast sometime and ask him about, was it Enki? Who's the previous dev of Task Force back when it was called Stable? Yes. I want to see how that conversation went, how Deadman contacted that guy, what led to Deadman eventually taking up the torch and making it Task Force Beta.
I just love
and
that
of course,
to this
also
day
having to
beta.
support Stable at the same time. Yeah. Having Stable still be a thing. Like whatever agreement was made
beta,
between them might have required
exclamation mark, and yet everyone knows that beta is significantly more stable than
How many
stable.
people still subscribe to Stable? Because I know
so
most people
many.
think people would move on.
No.
Beta is so much better. Yet, Lieutenant Corporal Leroux's group, he was on a few weeks ago. Leroux's group used Stable until 3 weeks ago.
So
I'm pretty sure it's
just
Lance
changed over to
Corporal,
beta.
by the way.
Well, I might as well ask my silly joke question
Indeed.
for nkenny, actually.
All right, sorry.
Since you're a philosopher and I'm a layman, just a quick brain teaser, a little head scratcher. This has been bothering me a little bit over the past few months as I think about it on and off.
Is it about the genetic cat
all
girls?
The time. Maybe. People joke all the time about wanting to just have genetically modified cat girls in their society, whether it's Elon Musk making them or not. But is this not playing God? Is this not creating life when you decide to stick your fingers into the genetic makeup of something and custom
don't answer that question.
Not just
don't
to be
answer that
better,
question,
not just to have a creature.
Every question Whale asks is designed to try and trap you into a morally dubious situation.
Why would I want to morally dubiously trap
Thank
you?
you.
Okay, it sounds like what you're phrasing here is a total interesting question.
Just leaving. All right. You have to go around the table. I'm not sure you can fit it. There you go.
Anyways, the actual question on Kenny is, if you were to design a creature genetically to be subservient, is that not extremely immoral?
Right.
Not amoral.
Give me a second.
Not absent of morals, but immoral, against morality.
All right. Whale is no longer in the recording studio. So, thank you all for coming today. We're going to wrap up the podcast for here today. If there's anything you want to say, we'll each have your little goodbyes. Drongo, is there anything you want to shout out or want to wrap up with or say before we bounce off? Any mods you want to direct people towards? Don't think Wales realized he's out of the server yet.
I like George Floros. His scripts are good. One of the topics we didn't get to is minor stuff that don't get to see.
Yes,
so yeah, George Floros. Look at his stuff there.
All right,
and it's been an absolute pleasure to be on here.
Thank you very much, man. Thank you for coming. It was good fun to have you. And, and all right, well, we'll get going. Diwako, as you skate around, anything to shout out, add, anything to wrap up with?
Not much, but thanks for having me.
All right, no worries. Thank you for coming. And nkenny, my apologies for your degree getting violated by whale.
No, thanks for having me, and absolutely, if you're on the edge of it, try getting into mission making. It's fun. You'll learn a lot about ArmA. Yeah. You learn a lot about yourself, and it's great fun, really.
Yeah. All right. Severe, what are you doing out there? You got anything to say?
I'm observing.
I see. Okay.
At this kind of point, I just want to say that like it is fascinating to see the width of the front when it comes to things like mod making and scripting and programming. Having never dabbled in that myself, it like having 3 people in front of the table that we can actively converse about the subject was fascinating. So thank you all for coming.
Who are very, very good at it and put us all to shame. So thank you all for coming. That has been Bad Frag Week 4. The podcast is wrapping up now, and we'll shout out the alerts in just a moment. Thank you all for coming.